All right, let's get into some national politics. We want to start with Obamacare, which is more popular than it's been in at least 2 years. There's a new Kaiser poll out, and it shows that more people like it than dislike it. And if you say, what's the big deal? I haven't been able to say that for a long, long time, if ever. So the question then is, should Hillary Clinton and other Democrats actually pick up the trend, Mike, and say this thing's popular, it's working, look at the numbers here, look how many states are opting in, or do they still treat it as the third rail and run away from it like they have been?
Look, I think it will continue to trend this direction, largely because all of so there were no question hiccups along the way on sort of the rollout of Obamacare, but what you've seen, all of sort of the sort of crying from the sky crises that were going to happen never really materialized. The latest one was supposed to be the fees you were going to get hit with on your taxes if you hadn't signed up. We haven't seen that materialize in any substantial way. And the fact is, under any entitlement program, once you have access to it and you actually see the bottom dollar in your pocket, you're not going to want to give that up. So I think that what you'll see is it continue to trend upwards, and I think that it will be a net positive in next year's elections, both at the presidential level and the congressional level. It still will be a sort of socialism talking point for like the far right, but I don't think when you get to the one number that's not, it's climbing, but not in net positive so far as independents on that. Yep. But the Democrat numbers are so high, independents are almost breaking even at this point, and I think you will not see a change in Republicans unless its name is changed to Bushcare next year.
And Scott, I look back, and if you looked at after Social Security and Medicare were enacted, it was the same exact dialogue and debate in this country. And then imagine now, Republican campaigning against Social Security or against Medicare. I mean, it's a non-starter. I mean, you wouldn't make it out of your primary, right?
Yep.
So was that the fear the whole time, that after a while this thing's going to get so ingrained you'll never be able to get rid of it for political reasons?
Yeah, no, I think that's always been the fear, and that's why a lot of folks on the right particularly are constantly bringing it up. But, there's some caution flags here. First of all, we had this court case which talks about states' rights under this and what a state should and shouldn't get. The second part, and I really am not an expert on this, but all the good parts of this law have been implemented. People are getting on health insurance, and the bad things, the taxes against the corporations, the fees, those things have kind of been held. So I'm not sure the last dialogue on this is over yet. And you may find during the course of this campaign that some of these things come up. I mean, people like to get health insurance.
Yeah. And you can put a number on how many have as well. All right. GOP presidential race, it's starting to look like a horse race, and I want to go with this analogy here. Big donors lining up to stake their horse, if you will, as favorite candidates. Billionaire Koch brothers, since they picked the winner, Wisconsin Governor Scott Brown. Looks like billionaire Sheldon Adelson, he's leaning towards betting on Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Everybody is looking for Dom a sugar daddy, and this could be the first presidential election where all the candidates, if not bought and paid for, they have their patronage here, right? And you got to kiss the ring. And I want to think about it for a second. What if you're Scott Walker, right, and you got the Koch brothers, especially since Citizens United? You're going to probably check with them before you do a major policy initiative, right? I mean, I'm not being too cynical.
Not at all.
All right.
Richard, I mean, they're putting the money on the table. There's a reason. And the reason being, I'm just going another way, exactly what you just said. Another reason is Scott Walker is their candidate.
Careful. Yeah.
Right. Is their candidate, it appears. And do you think he's going to do, for the most part, anything that they disagree with? But the one that I don't understand, maybe these guys can explain to me, if you're Adelson, why in the world would you go with Rubio? I mean, Rubio has no chance at all.
Last time, so he doesn't have a great track record.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I could do the same thing. Let's say George Soros picked O'Malley. I mean, this just happens to be how this is breaking out right now. It's not good for the system, right? Where forget about that, you got to go to the people, right? And I know there's big donors, and I know there's bundling. I know money's always been in politics, Scott. I'm not naive. But now it's up front and basically, who you're going to sponsor. I just envision like the Derby. You got the guys sitting up there with the hats, and then the jockey sitting on there, and they're going to be like, you better get in the circle so I can, do the roses.
Yeah.
It's a little unseemly, if not a lot.
No, it's uncomfortable for those of us who believe democracy should be based on who's best at, at proposing ideas. And $900 million goes a lot, which the conscience of
Better than a stick in the eye, yeah.
Yeah. So no, and to Dominic's point and to Mike's point, there's a point at which you go, okay, how much influence is involved here? The Koch brothers have their own. They've been supporting him for a while, so that's maybe not news. Although they recently said, well, we're not supporting anybody yet. We want to see how all of you can jump, how high you can go.
And they offered Jeb a chance to
and
come
they
back today.
offered Jeb, who may be their last choice. But it is disturbing because once you just buy elections, and that's what's going to be talked about. And Jeb Bush, who is going to create, did you hear about this his whole campaign is going to be run by a private kind of enterprise, almost along the same lines. So instead of having a campaign team, he's going to have essentially an outfit doing most of the campaign.
If I'm a Bloomberg, Mike, okay, or if I'm a guy that I could throw $1 billion at this and it's not going to change my life, why anymore give it to the DNCs or the RNCs or anything? I'm going to pick the guy I want. I'm going to say, okay, just like Alec did, right? Here are my 5 issues. Where are you on this? Oh, no, you didn't check number 4. Let's come back to this, okay? This is what I want. I'll support your candidacy, and I'm going to have a voice in this.
Yeah.
And probably a voice in the cabinet, and probably a voice, in terms of transition.
This is
I can go down the line.
pure and simple. It is, for those watching, it's no different than all of us sitting around this table, the 4 of us, and me saying, here's my bill, here's your bill, here's yours. And the 4 of us are going to fight this out with our cash and have little pawns that run around the table and do our dirty work.
Yeah.
The fact, look, it is, I don't even know how to I can't even put this strongly enough. It is damn frightening.
It is,
where
isn't it?
we
When
are.
you see how this is playing
And
out,
the
and
notion-
billionaires are picking their guy.
And the notion that a billionaire's ability to say, you all come before me and dance and audition, and then I will choose where my billion goes, and that's free speech. And the notion that we argue, that anyone argues, not we, I certainly don't, that is free speech in America is just boggles the mind and should frighten you to the core.
And I'm sorry, if I'm writing a check for $1 billion, Scott, I'm going to have a voice, if you're elected, who I think should be nominated for the Supreme Court.
A voice?
Right?
But
You own that candidate. Or a check for $1 billion. That you are the president, and that is your vice president.
Let me just throw something in here, though. They still have to get elected. And in
Yes.
order to get elected, they've got to follow what people want. And that includes polls and public positions and what have you. And listen, for all of us who've run for office, we got stuff from all sorts of people saying, where do you stand on this issue, this issue, this issue? And you sign it the best you can.
But isn't there one big difference, Scott? That if I'm a congressman from Georgia or a senator from Alabama, and I say, wait a second, Koch's just he's writing checks here for $1 billion for Walker. He's my nominee. I better get in line too and see what they want as well. I mean, it doesn't just stop at the presidential nominee.
and
people get in line.
And it's not just yes, at the end of the day, voters will have to vote, but it's about that $1 billion is the largest megaphone in the world that will drown out every other special interest. And special interests are everything from
TV
the
ads.
community health clinic to the seniors
but
group.
not every millionaire wins election either. I mean,
No, that is true. That is true.
And in often cases it can be used against them. So I mean, as dangerous as this might sound, there are balances on it. I think.
I hear you, but
Yeah.
we are in oligarchy. I mean, it is frightening.
It's not only billionaires running for office. They figured out they don't have to do this, right? They don't have to do the chicken
got a
dinners.
suit that'll do
they
it
just
for
got a
them.
check. Exactly. All right, coming up next, everybody. After a man died while in police custody, Baltimore immediately suspended 6 officers, held a news conference to keep people informed. Are we now in an era of more transparency as cameras seem to be catching everything?